All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Self-Help Comedy Hour. We are the world's first self-help variety show. We unite self-help experts and people from the world of entertainment. We are celebrity adjacent. We are 4 blocks from the ocean and 7 blocks from freedom. And that's what I always say, because I like to come up with little slogans. And that's what, not happy, but close, is the... So I have to tell you that this is going to be a very interesting show. We're going to mix and match here. We have a great guest, and we also have some other pieces that we're going to put together. I'll tell you that my guest tonight, we'll talk a little bit shortly. You'll meet him shortly, but an old friend, a good friend, and somebody who I spent a long time at a place called the Westward Ho Motor Lodge Hotel Comedy Club, drove in something called the Rambo Tour, which was a tour that existed out of Minneapolis. And that's where I met him. And tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the Minnesota sensibility, where it comes from, how it affects a person, how they go on to create with that. And me... tonight, it's a particularly... Oh, and I should tell you, later on in the show, you're going to hear an interview that I did with a great actor and host of his own show called The Mental Illness Happy Hour, Paul Gilmartin. And Paul is very funny, and his show is great. He is a guy who definitely has looked at life from both sides now. I've looked at life from no sides now. That's my no sides now. But... I have to tell you, this has been a big week because I'm from Boston, and this week was a big week for the Red Sox. Huge Red Sox fan, and my father would have been very proud. I called my father every night after every Red Sox game, and we spoke, and before he could even say hello on the phone, he would say, "Why don't you take a guy out? How do you leave him in?" Didn't even say hello. What is he thinking? How do you leave a guy in? Seriously, how do you leave him in? They don't have it. They don't have it, Ed. That's our conversation from the beginning. And then, because he had normal pressure hydrocephalus for a little while, water on the brain, he got a little bit... He was an amazing guy, my dad, but he got a little bit dementia. This is the way it affected him. And I talked about this in the show before, but it was fascinating. Oh, and I should mention... We have 2, I don't want to say newborns, but they are kind of newborn.
8 months.
They're 8 months old. They're fraternal twins, and they are touring the country in their own one-man show. It's called Twins, A Love Story, and they're great. And it's just, we're very happy to see you guys tonight, and I expect you to come back and be on the program.
That's
yes. Exactly how I feel every week.
I think that's a yes.
And that's my conversation with my agent, usually. Do you want to do this? They want you over at such and such a Exactly. But it's nice to have you guys. And I have to tell you that they are beautiful. And their parents are probably younger than they are. You guys they have everything going for them. They live near the ocean, and they're not in show business yet, and so they still have their life, and you'll live a happy life. I know it. Stay away from a man named Rick Messina. No, I'm not. I'm kidding. I love Rick Messina. He's great.
So much to look forward to.
Yeah, there is a lot to look forward to, and the world is going to be a wonderful place because people are looking at their inside now. They're being turned back to themselves because gadgets, things like that, they don't matter. You'll have a phone, it'll be part of your wrist. No, it'll be like a Dick Tracy phone. But you know what you'll have? You'll have peace. Because people are going to learn how to do that again. They won't learn about it in my lifetime.
Well,
but they will in
maybe
yours.
They can turn us on to it, the young people.
Yeah, the young people can do it.
Come around with it and say, hey,
well,
something.
You know, they're learning. What people are learning, I think, is that the gadgets are not actually giving us more leisure time. They're actually giving us less leisure
It was
time.
a wonderful little video I saw today. It was sad in that regard.
Wait, I should introduce you again.
Oh, okay. I should maybe not speak
No,
yet.
it's okay.
You were still,
No, I don't know. I just the Boston stuff was pretty
Yeah.
interesting, and
So you're serious every night, and your dad's got to be.
my dad is
How old is he?
we lost. My dad's dead,
Oh,
but
wait a minute.
He
They
died.
just won the series,
they did.
so he lived long enough. He didn't. Just
He
die.
lived long enough to see them win it in 2004,
Excellent.
and then
That was good.
That probably
that's
killed
when
him.
Don Zimmer got rolled on his ass by.
that year was a wonderful year. Very respectful.
Yeah.
That was '03.
Oh, was it?
But it's the same. It all blends together.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I'm very proud of Boston, and I'm very proud of the way the team came around. It really was a team, and it really connected with what had happened in April at the marathon,
Right.
and the city sort of came together, and it was kind of a cool thing. Boston is the it's a very strong town, and it's a very connected town, and it has a lot of trouble, but it also has a lot of loyalty, and it has a lot of it has a hard work ethic, and people are very loyal. They lay down in front of the tracks for you, but they try to keep you out if you were of a certain color, or any color. It really, honestly, I mean, it's a very separated, divided city in that way, but there's also amazing pockets of education and great art and great music and great comedy and great culture and great history. So it's got a lot of greatness to it. It just, in the way a place is settled, like, when you walk downtown, they're tough people. And you walk down, and it's snowing sideways, and there's a paper boy with the paper. And excuse my language, kids. There's a paper boy, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and he's smoking a cigarette. He's like 10.
Right.
And I said, he looks at me and he says, "How about this goddamn weather we're having? Is this fucked or what?" He's like 10 years old. These are. Oh, for Christ's sake, say when I'm tired of them. You got that part of it, and then you have, John F. Kennedy, and then you have history. So it's interesting. But anyway, I'm rambling, but I'm very proud of Boston. Also, we had Halloween this week, and we had, I didn't have a chance to get a store-bought costume or anything like that. And I went with my daughter. She was dressed. She dressed up as a cheerleader, but she was great.
How old is she now?
She's 9,
Oh.
and I'm 900. And as I went to the door, they said, "Well, what are you supposed to be?" And I said, "I'm dressing as a human being." Is that weird? Maybe I'm weird. And then I got angry, and it was a bad scene.
Sure.
As long as the kids are having a good time. But I'm dressed as a human being. I don't know what that means even. But anyway, great week, interesting week. And I want to say one more thing, and then I'm going to bring on our guests. But it's the idea of working against yourself. I think that, especially in these economic times, I'm very familiar with it. And I feel like, you have that feeling like you're riding around in the car with the emergency brake on. You don't really need to put your foot on the gas. But if you take the emergency brake off, the car will go on its own. And that's really that's what's happening when you're working against yourself and maybe working for other people and not thinking about what, this is myself. I'm talking to you people. Not thinking about what I do best, and finding out what I do best. You can be, even in show business, you can be writing for others and helping to make other shows go forward, and that's fine. But eventually, you have to find your own voice. And so I realized that self-help and comedy, or humor and emotion, that's where I wanted to live, in that kind of a world. And I really thought that you could have self-help experts and entertainers, and that there would be a crossover, and you would have something called self-help comedy. It could be a genre, or revolving around problem solving and entertainment. I felt like that was going to be a new kind of of entertainment, new kind of media, could be. And that's why I came up with a show called Celebrity Think Tank. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to tell you that the world's biggest problems are going to be solved in a half hour. That's all I can tell you about it. Okay, tonight's show is brought to you brought to you by Inner Child Inner Child Ice Cream. I scream, you scream, we all scream inside for Inner Child Ice Cream. Those are my slogans. That's what I do. Very nice to see you guys, and happy life. Come back and see us.
Yeah.
Please.
Nice to chat with you.
2 new parents, 2 new children, great family, and wishing them well. Anyway, folks out there, thanks for tuning into the show. Later on, Paul Gilmartin, and I think we're going to have an appearance from The Blanks, the a cappella group The Blanks, who are Ted's band and Scrubs, the show Scrubs. And they're a great a cappella band, and they are amazing, very funny too. We'll have some music for you. But right now, sitting here patiently, an old friend, great playwright, terrific actor, really a triple threat, a quadruple threat. Terrific comedian, musician, and a guy who is not afraid to wear a nice pair of dress shoes by the ocean.
Don't forget Master of Self-Loathing.
And a master of self-loathing, Mr. Joe Keys. Joe, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
It's been a long time.
I know.
And I have to catch up with you right away. But we were talking earlier. You are from the Minnesota area, from Pipestone. Mm-hmm. And the first thing we talked about was not, hi, how are you, how you doing? The first thing we talked about is the Indian massacre that took place at Mankato.
Well, you know what's funny? When you were talking about the 10-year-old cigarette-smoking paper boy,
yeah,
and outside, and was winter part of the
condition?
winter,
yeah, snowing sideways.
I flashed to an incident that happened in, I think, 1977 when I was walking in northeast Minneapolis back to an apartment that I shared with my brother. It was 20 below zero. I don't know why I was out, and I was just, it was like, I was hoping I was going to make it back. It was so goddamn. Is the language?
Yeah, no, you can do whatever you want.
And in Minnesota, the brutality of winter is one of the few bonding elements that exists in that state, because people don't really extend themselves out of any kind of sense of humanity or compassion unless they really have to. But when you all might die together in the same blizzard, yeah, you're willing to extend. So I'm just almost home, and I see there's the house, and I can't feel my hands, and I see this guy, and I pass him. We're in the middle of the road because the sidewalks are all covered up. We're in the middle of this road, it's snow, and I go, just as an act of, hey, I hope you make it, it's like, it's cold enough for you, which, of course, everyone says. And he said, with just a ton of hate, he goes, kiss my ass. And he thought I was like, I was just shocked because I was I wanted to say, hey, we're going to make it. I'm going to make it there, and I hope your house is not too much farther than mine because I don't. And he was just enraged. I don't know what he thought because it scared me. His response frightened me because I was right next to him in the road, cold enough for you, kiss my ass. And I could tell he'd been walking probably twice as long as I had.
Oh, so maybe he was
almost going to drop from exposure, perhaps. I mean, he was really. And then I felt bad, like, oh, gee, that went the wrong way. Just wanted to say, yeah, it's cold, isn't it? Yeah, and then we'll move on. That's all we needed to share.
Maybe he had been living in L.A. and walked because they didn't pick up his option or his screenplay, and then by the time he got there, he was really angry.
Oh, God.
Something like that. No, but I don't want to. Listen, you come from that area, and that area of the country has the most unusual mix of tremendous darkness,
yeah,
and tremendous comedy and tremendous light. It's like a combination. It's a very strange combination because people are very polite. Mm-hmm. They're very pleasant. Right. Like Canadian people are very, very pleasant.
Right.
But below the surface,
a lot of darkness there.
Boiling darkness.
Yeah, a lot of
fascinating.
Yeah.
And the way it's expressed, if it's expressed through the arts, there's a tremendous art culture there, and music, and comedy, and theater.
Right.
And so this is where you grew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
mean,
in the country too. I grew up in a small rural community, Pipestone, which is 4,300 people. So the weather and the elements play a big part in the way people behave. Really, I mean, you are constantly kind of having to surrender to what it's going to be like now. It's going to
Right.
be 20 below. It's going to be 90 degrees in humidity. Are the crops, and rain. I mean, just a constant assault of some kind of weather that you had to adjust to. That you couldn't go.
Right.
You had to change your plans. And
So
still.
so you so the in this way, I mean, it affects a person, and how do you cope with that, and how do you become like, where's the light? Where is
Well,
the light?
I think it's in the mysticism of all that. Like, I just lately I've been, I've constant search for God or no God, and what is it? I was raised Catholic, so I thought I had to believe, Jesus was, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and I was afraid not to even consider other possibilities because I'll go to hell forever. And there's a little part of my mind that still thinks that, but now because I've read so many books about different prophets, different religions stuff, not that I'm an expert, but just to try to free myself from the clench hold that the kind of religion had on me.
Right.
I've stumbled recently on the idea of mysticism, something that's larger than all the religions, than all the faiths, all the practice. That is the big thing, and weather plays into that too, and nature. Like I don't know. I'm actually kind of excited about the possibilities now.
Well, there are possibilities because you mentioned mysticism. I mean, in the Jewish religion, there's Kabbalah, and Kabbalah is something that they keep from you until you're 40.
Really?
You're not supposed to read the book of Jewish mysticism. You're not supposed to read the Kabbalah
Until you're 40?
Until you're at least 40, because you won't understand it. It's
Wow.
it's too out there. The Kabbalah says things like, when you're born, there's a tiny angel that sits in your mother's womb and tells you everything you need to know about life. And then just before you're born, they tap you right under your nose, which is why you have that indentation there, and you forget everything. And that life is a journey of remembering and rediscovering what you already know.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff the Kabbalah talks about.
Right.
Really the most interesting stuff. But you're forced to go through this other stuff because we're talking about, there's a couple different things. There's religion,
Right.
which is a certain kind of practice, and then there's spirit,
Right.
which is something else.
Or
And the
pop-
two got disconnected years ago.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just to be able to entertain the notion of other spiritual practices or religions or
Right.
I mean, I was so clamped down in the religion I was indoctrinated with that it wasn't allowed. I mean, it's like, what's the one true religion? You're going to go to hell, blah blah blah.
Right.
And so now I have this freedom. Like, I want to explore all of that and see what I really feel and think about it. Or maybe I'm an atheist. Maybe I'll come. I may have some friends who've recently decided they're atheists, and I think, in a way, it's liberating. If you say, there's nothing. It's just we don't know why. We don't know what. We're just here, and then. I mean, I wouldn't mind being at that place and then saying, well, what does it look like spiritually from here?
Right.
Just to have some kind of
Some
neutral
kind-
place to start at, because
That all people are connected, because that's the one thing is, as I got older, I thought I started having this feeling, why am I separate from God? And why am I separate from other people? And why do we have to be separate? And why, I understand people have different histories, but why do we have to be separate? And why is it outside of me? Why is it all outside of me? Why isn't it inside?
it is. It's got to be inside. Like, when I was waiting to come up here and start the show tonight, I hadn't been down here for a while, and I was just getting snapshots of people's behavior, and there was a lot of like soulful stuff going on. This kid comes into the sandwich shop, and he's just kind of sort of, I don't know if he's hippie is even appropriate anymore, no, but beach kid, and he's maybe like 20 years old, and he says, I'm gonna have some French fries, and I'm gonna do that ketchup thing on it, and I'm a middle-aged grump now, so I started to get annoyed I don't know why, just because he's using those words, he's young, I don't know why, I guess I'm bitter, okay, there I said it, but he says a ketchup thing, and then she gives it to him, and then he leaves and turns and goes, oh, I love you, he says to the woman, and leaves. And I was a bit stunned by that because it was just an honest profession of, you could tell the kid was sincere. He was honest. And I was sort of in the corner there by the ATM extracting some money, judging him for being just this kind of, he's just a stoned kid who's, and I just, it stopped me. It pushed me back a step, and I went, that kid seems really sincere and honest and open. His spirit seems alive. Mine doesn't, because I'm just full of bitterness right now. But the fact that I could perceive that gives me more hope to carry on. And really,
Sure.
all it is hope. At this point in the game, for me, I don't know about you, Ed, but it's just, where's my hope today? Okay, I just woke up. Where did I put my hope? Right
Where
next
did
to
I put
glasses.
my hope? Yeah.
It's got, because if I, without that, I don't know what there is. Probably nothing. And that, I thought, that's hope. I like that. Then I got over beat myself up for being a mean old grump judging the kid, and I thought, I like the fact that kid had some humanity.
So you have this perspective on it. You can actually stop yourself. You can stop the voice for a few seconds, and you can recognize it. Now, how can you recognize it? You can recognize it because it's inside of you. You recognize it because it's who you are. You recognize it because you're not separate from that.
Right.
That's the truth, that you're not separate.
Right.
The other stuff is all lies. The other stuff is lies. People wrote a book to explain things that they couldn't explain, the unexplainable, things that they couldn't understand. So they made up They told stories.
Right.
Some of them had a historical context, but they told stories.
Right.
If you look at I don't know the New Testament that well, but I do know the Old Testament fairly well. You couldn't do a Real Housewives of Atlanta. That would be worse than that. This is bad. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in there. It is not a book about. It's not a book about spirit. It's a book about you did the wrong things, and you're going to be punished. A lot of punishment in there.
Yeah.
A God does not punish.
Right.
God-like behavior doesn't involve punishment.
Exactly.
So if it is, then it's not real. It can't be real.
I agree.
So it's a lie. So I'm not saying that religion is a lie, but I'm saying that there's a story. There are stories. They're fable. They're meant to be myth. There's mythology that people are trying to grapple with issues.
I agree. If you wanted to make a connection between religion and spirituality, I would say what you just said, that it's love. If you make the connection that God is love, and the spirit, our purpose is to try to be loving. That's what it is. That simple thing.
Now you. I want to just say.
But the thing
go
is,
ahead.
well, I was just going to say about condemning yourself. Because that's a problem I have, and I think you have that too.
Yeah.
You know that joke about the Jews invented guilt and the Catholics perfected it.
Right.
Or, because out of the get-go, I felt guilty, ashamed, and part of it's religious. It's like, because Jesus died, he suffered. You had that thought, it's as bad as the deed. You're going to go to hell, And I, to the point where I can't, it just happens. It just happens. And I'm if I have any hope, it's that I can recognize it. Go, Joe, that's that thing. That's that old tape. You don't have to go with that. You could maybe try being nice to somebody and get out of yourself for just a second so you don't hear that tape. That works sometimes. I'm still kind of self-absorbed, selfish person, but I realize when I can get out of my head, I'm free.
You can make a new choice. You can make a different choice, and you did in that moment. And the other thing that, like, recently, and I've talked about this a lot, but it really is, it's interesting to me, the idea of welcoming instead of resisting.
Mm-hmm.
That welcoming the things that whatever's going on in the moment.
Yeah.
Judgment.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, welcome it and invite it to do more, expand.
I may not.
And it goes away. It goes out, because it's the double whammy of I'm feeling this and I'm not allowed to feel it, and also I'm not a good person for feeling it.
Right.
So when you have that layering,
Right.
then it makes it stay.
We might be a little healthier than we think we are, mentally and spiritually, because I won't use your word welcoming. What I use is accept. I accept it.
Right.
If I have this horrible, evil thought, I say to myself, I just accept it. I didn't create that. I don't want that. I don't, that just happened. Or paradise. Like, I was walking around here. There's some people that are desperate out here on the streets, and they frightened me, And then I started to feel agitated because I was frightened. It just triggered something, and then I started to not feel good. And I remember thinking, just breathe and relax, because maybe that person, they're desperate people. You don't have to be agitated about this.
Well, now,
and then you wonder why.
Now, but in coming from, I want to get back to Minnesota because
Yeah.
that's how we met.
Right.
And I have to just say, sometimes when you meet a comic on the road, you're cemented for life. But when it's a great person and they're very talented, and they help you when you walk off stage at a place where you're supposed to do 45 minutes and you do 3 minutes,
It's like being in
they save your life.
Yeah.
Right. You saved my life. So then we're friends for life. And so there's this thing called the Rambo Tour. There's this club. There was a club in Minneapolis.
East Grand Forks.
Yeah, and we're in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
North Dakota. That's where the Westward Ho is.
The Westward Ho.
That was the first leg of it, wasn't it? There for 2 days or one day?
And then a 10-hour drive. In between the clubs was a 10-hour drive.
Oh.
And Joe did most of the driving, maybe all the driving, while he needed to have a root canal.
See, I'd forgotten about that till you brought that up another time. I forgot because that happened a couple times on the road. Oh,
Yeah.
my tooth is rotting, it's throbbing. And
Tooth
I have
is
to drive
rotting,
10 hours.
is driving 10 hours in between these gigs, and going to places like Devil's Lake, Wisconsin, where it was a town that was a farming town that had combines, and there were farmers, and they charged $5 to sit and $3 to stand in the comedy club. That's the kind of place it is. And of course, I went out there, I remember, and I said, I don't know that much about combines. I'm a Jew, but I guess I just have to ask, does everybody have their hands? It was like some kind of weird, is everybody's hand okay?
20 hooks went up in the air.
That's right. I'm not going to use the phrase sickle at all. I won't be saying sickle. I won't be saying hoe. But at any rate, so we did these clubs, and I'd been on the road, I guess, for a while, and I just sort of snapped. But I didn't yell at people, but they were talking in front, and they weren't paying attention to me, and I just said, you know what, folks, good night. And it was like a minute or two after, and you thought I was making fun. You thought I was just having fun.
I was in the back of the room as I remember it.
Right.
It was, how many years ago was it?
A long time ago.
So I'm in the back of the room, and I see you up there, and I just see these big, large, round, blonde heads all around you.
Right.
Like Norwegians and Swedes, which are predominant in that part of the country. And I see you kind of looking a little irritated, and I'm kind of like, oh, because, we all have suffered on stage. I mean, it's always kind of fun in a weird way, like, oh, wow, is he going to get out of this, And then I see you say something like, well, and that's the way I feel. Boom, and put the mic down, and I was like, and I started laughing because I guess if at your pain, okay, admit
Right.
it. And then then you came off, and I realized I got to get up there.
Yeah. I'm really off stage.
So I go running up there. By the way, I'm sure the same thing had happened to me. And I get up there, and I see this circle of it was like a little house, like, oh, here's 20 farm boys, blonde, white, albino, blonde farm boys staring, And they just were kind of staring me, and I went, oh, I see what he was up against,
Yeah.
And I don't think I did too well myself. I just
But you
kept
had
digging.
But you had to do my time and your time.
I don't know if I did all that time.
You did. You did a lot. Yeah. You did it.
But because that's the thing. If you're from an area, sometimes you can use these catchphrases and buzzwords and things, and people will say, oh, okay, he's got the hard O sound. Oh, he's
one of us. He's one of us.
And that's the thing about people being different and that's why this book that I was mentioning, Zealot, just got me fascinated. The way the Romans would just come down and just try to crush the Jews and just slaughter decade after decade after decade, and then put up a governor in place to watch them to get and I understand more now when we talk about mythology, about stories, why this idea of the Messiah came out of there, because there's hundreds of guys walking around going, we got to find God because we're being crushed by these Romans, they're just killing us.
Right.
It makes sense to me how that could develop now under those kind of horribles.
We have to look, it couldn't be inside of it, there has to be something greater. But that there's no time when you're being beaten like that there's a greater inside of me. There must be something above us. There's got to be something besides this.
Yeah.
So this above, but
to look inside. Well, anyway, I mean, I just been fascinated with.
But that's why when Sammy Sosa, when they point to the heavens after they hit a home run,
Right.
It's so much. See, I realize that you would look really strange if you bowed your head and looked inside. It looks so much better to go the other way and
dramatic.
point to the heavens.
More dramatic, perhaps.
Otherwise, you look like you're sad because you have to bow your head. You go looking at here, and it's
But
not the same. But at any rate, so this is how we met. But that area of the country,
It's a kind of desolation that exists there. In again, back to the weather. It's dark. It's cold. It's snowy. It's rain.
so now how do you take that experience, and how does it play out in your life? Because if you don't, I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, you're sober. You're
Sure.
in recovery. You've been in
26,
recovery.
almost 27 years.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, it is really.
It's kind of
'cause,
amazing.
I mean, I like to drink and do drugs because I don't like reality that much, and I still don't like pain and discomfort. It's a good way to get, but I can't. It was killing me. I mean, I was.
Yeah.
But
But you then that process involves spirituality, yes.
it does. But again, as if. I mean, I don't feel any. After 27 years of sobriety, in many ways, I don't feel any closer to understanding God than I did the first day I came in 27 years ago. Because I have searched and looked, and I've seen a lot of things that are kind of the same, and that kind of still don't add up.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not looking to disprove anything. I'd love to find my own personal savior if that such a thing exists. Don't know if it does. And like you say, it's the inside thing. It's like, God, what a wonderful world to live. If we were taught from the age we're, as children to meditate, to breathe, to relax. Let's all relax in kindergarten. Let's look inside and breathe. I think our society would be a lot more successful.
Couldn't agree more. It's the most important skill today, problem solving in general, and how to calm yourself.
Yeah.
How to calm yourself.
Yeah.
This is, if you learn one thing in your life, if you know how to calm yourself, you will live a happier life.
Although I feel the paradox about that is, like, one time I was on the road for about weeks and weeks and weeks alone out there doing comedy.
Right.
Hadn't really made any meaningful human contact. Just people at the clubs, hanging out, and I started to have anxiety, bad anxiety. It ended up being one of the most terrifying experiences I ever had. I started to have, I guess, a nervous breakdown, anxiety. I was like, couldn't look at people, couldn't talk to people, was hiding. I was thrown to my knees. I was praying to a God I didn't know existed, or please, either let me have a breakdown and go to a hospital, or get through this, because I have to do a show in 10 minutes, and the house is full, and it's Saturday night. And didn't really hear any voice or anything, and I remember walking. It was like death row, dead man walking down the corridor to get to the club, hearing the crowd. They came to see me. I was a headliner. Not that I was a big deal or anything, but that was that night the headline. My heart's pounding. I'm fucking having anxiety. I get up on stage. I try to smile, but I'm sure I look like a grimace of terror. And I swear, I started my act. Half of my, I sort of was able to separate my brain. Half of my brain was doing the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, wisdom to know the difference. The other half was doing my act. And I remember, because I felt like otherwise I was going to just explode into a million pieces of agonizing, screaming pain that were going to instantly come back and shred me and hurt me more. It was terrifying. Looking at people, they were kind of looking at me like, kind of funny, but something's not right. It doesn't seem terribly relaxed, And I got through the 45, 50 minutes, and went back to the condo, and I was heart's pounding. And I mean, it was that kind of anxiety, and it just came on out of the blue, which even made it scarier.
Yeah.
But it was, for me, I was just used to stuff everything, stuff your feelings, stuff your thoughts, stuff everything. You're on the road, you're having fun, And I was sober too. And the paradox that it's like I said, well, I guess this is what it's supposed to be. And when I started to accept it, back to what we were talking about, accept it, and then I started to talk to people about it, actually confess, you know what, I'm not doing so well here. Well, what do you mean? Well, I'm having a nervous breakdown while I'm on the road. Really? What's that like? It started to didn't go away, but it started to. And so I got through the tour, and I remember coming back to LA, and I went down to the Improv, and there's a comedian we both know, I won't mention his name now, but a pretty famous, popular guy sitting there, and he looked horrible. And I walked up to him, and he said to me, swear to God, I had a nervous breakdown, I can't go on the road anymore. And I said, really? Well, let's have a little talk. Anyway, having gone through that, then slowly I talked to people. I went to meetings in AA, and I, practiced some kind of ritual, spiritual ritual that way, and it slowly went away. And now I think to myself, that was one of the most terrifying experiences I ever had. I thought I was going to, just the shame, the humiliation, the fear, the terror, all mixed in. I'm going to have to, nervous in front of people, have a nervous breakdown, have to be hauled away, start crying, shit myself. What's going to, what is it? I can't control physically can't control my shaking. And once I got through that, and now it made me stronger because I know how much terror and pain and fear I can take. And I'm no big hero or anything. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Having gone through that, I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of glad I went through that. I kind of am, because I know that I got through it. I got through that. And I thought I was going to die or something terrible was going to happen. And I also learned that you can't live you can't live isolated.
Right.
But
that is a terrifying thing, especially be on the road.
Oh my God.
And have that happen in isolation.
Yeah.
Which only compounds it. Yeah. And connecting with another comedian. It's funny that person, that comic, opened up to you about it. No coincidence, really.
Yeah.
That you were the person.
First thing he said, I walked in the improv. He was just sitting there looking really messed up in a booth.
Yeah.
And somebody really, a great comedian, and he'd done the same thing, just disconnected from his feelings, his emotions, on the road.
Yeah.
Not really knowing how to relax and breathe and look inside for anything.
Sure. And that's what the road is for a lot of comedians. For any performer who's touring around, it can get that way.
Yeah.
Because you're not connected to people.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how some of these guys can still. I God bless them. Still do 20, 30 years. Part of me is like, that was fun. It was a lot of fun for a long time. But I just got so burned out, I couldn't. Maybe it'd be different now. It's like, what's his name? That Rich Scheidner. He after what, 13, 15 years, he started up again, right?
Yeah, that's a great story. And we had on Jordan Brady, who did the movie I Am Comic, and he did that movie with Rich. And but now, so you came out here, and you were stand up, but you had a background in acting.
Yeah,
you studied acting.
You were talking about where the dark, come from.
Yeah, and how you make something of that,
Yeah.
like how that finds its way into your.
Well, that's a really good question. I don't completely understand it. That's what I'm searching for. I think somebody smarter than me said that every writer always has an issue they're trying to resolve, or maybe 2 or 3 issues, and so they constantly rehash those issues through a story, a new story, another story, different characters, to try to figure something out, solve some problem, be liberated, be free, and I kind of agree with that. I feel like in my early life I had some it was idyllic, small town, riding our bikes, playing baseball, eating ice cream in the summer, going swimming, going to fishing, completely idyllic. But matched with that, there were some really traumatizing experiences, some really dark experiences kind of intertwined, with all of that idyllic stuff. And so I feel like that's sort of molded my perception of people in the world. And that's when I write stuff, all the characters are like that. They're tragic comic people. They have a lot of darkness, but they also have light to them. That's the only thing I could figure is that's kind of where my perception.
And so you were writing on a sitcom, yeah, on TV.
No,
you were writing on a sitcom.
Yeah, I have 3 different shows.
And then from that experience, you moved into playwriting.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit and what that transition is, and tell us about the first play that you wrote.
Well, I was
premise and everything, how it came to you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to get tired on network television show like any, you've been there, and I've been there because, you're on the road for years, and you want a job where you can get paid some money, and if you know how to write jokes, you can write for sitcoms. So I was writing on a show, and it wasn't a very good show, but
Army show?
Yeah, yeah, the Army show was the first one. Yeah. No, the Tom. Well, I wrote on the Tom show.
Tom Arnold.
Tom Arnold's, and then the Army show was next year, and
from that experience,
and then then I didn't get a job the next year, and my agent was like, well, you got to write another sitcom. You got to write a King of the Hill or write a. And I said, I'm just gonna write. I want to write something. I'm gonna just make something up. And I wrote this play, Pete's Garage, and it just kind of came out of me because I hadn't really ever. I mean, I'd written jokes like you and I had written as comedians, but
right.
I'd never, and I'd screwed around a little bit, but never. I want to write a story with a beginning and middle and end with these weird characters, and it just, it was so much. It was really fun and liberating because it was like all of these kind of pipestone kind of characters, people I had known, or composites or amalgams, of all these relatives of family members or people I've known came together into this cast of characters set in the small town of a alcoholic small engine repairman, his overweight wife, and the retarded, we use that word, it's not politically correct, but retarded man that came between them. Those were the three main characters, and it's basically a love story. It was the alcoholic small repairman is abusive. He neglects his wife, and she starts to have an affair with his mentally diminished assistant. But it's full of real, natural, palpable, honest love.
Yeah.
Even though he's not exactly on her level mentally, but she's no Einstein either. But they're real people, and they're real. They have.
It's a story as old as the earth itself. Boy meets retarded girl. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know those terms. Yeah. But you. What's great about this? What you're so great at is balancing out the humanity and the love and the darkness at the same time. That's what's very interesting. This is not a happy story, but what you find in it is humor and and some light and some love in there, and the ability to write that way that's the gold. I mean, that's really where it's.
And I think that's mystical. Back to that, because if I take again, somebody said, if you take credit for your whatever gifts you have or whatever skill you have, if you take credit for it, like you created it, you created your creativity, it's going to turn on you. Like the best experiences I've had, and I've written some horrible plays, and will continue to, but occasionally I'll write one that's pretty good. The best experience I have is when it comes through me, when I'm kind of like just the guy that writes stuff down. That's
right.
That mystical experience, and it doesn't happen every time. I wish it did.
Is there anything you do to create, to allow that to happen? Is there any atmosphere that you create, or how do you write? Like, what do you do?
Well, I've lived in the same tiny little bungalow for about 12 years, and as much as I wish I was rich enough to buy something 10 times that large to dwell in, to isolate in, it does kind of a womb-like effect. I like writing in there.
Uh-huh.
I enjoy that space. I was writing today, and I was.
So you just sit. Do you talk it? You don't talk it out. You're sitting at a keyboard.
Well, no, I'll talk. I'll write some stuff, and then, or I'll talk sometimes. I'll just talk. And the characters will talk, or sometimes I'll just write it and then talk it, or sometimes. But Woody, I don't know. I was reading this quote of Woody Allen talking about his experience, which I'm sure you probably read this too. But he talked about how he just first started writing jokes, and he wrote for Sid Caesar, and then he wrote a play, and then he does the same thing. I think he said he does the same thing today that he did for 30, 40 years ago. He sits down, he starts writing. Some days good stuff comes out, some days not so good stuff. And I tell myself, Joe, you have to have that. Just don't judge it. And I've got stuff taped all over. It's like a crazy man, evolve, it's a first draft, relax, so that
little sayings to let you
to keep me from
keep you going.
self-destructing, because that tape starts going in the mind again.
What are the sayings? What are some of them?
It's a first draft. Relax.
That's taped. That's taped up somewhere,
right in front of me on this little plastic table that supports my my computer. Have fun, enjoy it. And then I had to evolve. I don't know where that word came. Evolve, and stay out of the results. Stay out of the results. That one I'd heard that somebody else had said. Jerry Stahl, I guess, had given that
Jerry
advice
Stahl.
to somebody.
Well, you bring a date over,
Yeah.
and they see that.
They what?
They see the tape notes.
Oh well, yeah. They usually see that, and their hand goes right to the doorknob, and they make sure it's not locked.
They see that it's the makings of a ransom note. That's what it is. Every letter. But it's the guy
Well,
from
I've had-
Memento. But that is fantastic because you're dwelling in the it takes a lot of energy to work against yourself.
Yeah.
It
Good
takes
point.
less energy to say, "Hey, relax." That doesn't take as much energy as it does to say, "You're crazy. You'll always be crazy. Your mother's crazy. Your father's crazy. You're crazy."
Right.
That takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's kind of confusing because if you're trying to search for why you think you're crazy or why they were crazy through these stories, you don't want to keep it alive. You don't want to support those tapes, those beliefs in your mind.
And they are just that. They're just belief. They're just thought. They don't mean. There's no meaning.
Yeah. It's funny because I had my mom and father both died in the past. Yeah, and now I have a little picture today of my mother when she was a child. And I looked at it today, and they sold the house, and there were all these pictures, years and years. My dad took, in the 50s or in the 40s, he was taking movies and Super 8s just year after year, all the way up into the 80s, and then all kinds of pictures. But I got this glad that I took this picture of my mother when she was a child, because she looked so beautiful and sweet and innocent and hopeful. Because there was a lot of difficulty that I had with both my parents, and saw them in less than kindly light. But now when I can look at her as a child who wanted to have a good life, you can't. I'm not saying you rewrite history, but you're able to. It kind of forces compassion on you. You go, look, no one decides they want to be whatever they want to be, hateful, mean, that happens to us. People want love, and they want light, and they want to be happy. They want to be a smiling child posing patiently for a photograph,
Right.
And I'm glad I took that picture and other ones because otherwise the picture in my mind is not
the other.
that.
Yeah.
It's the other darker one,
And your dad was a town doctor.
Yeah, he was, and
On call.
on call 24/7. I mean, he would take. Even when he wasn't on call, here's the thing: he'd go, I want to take a day off. People would still call, and he'd still go. That's the thing. My mother would. I saw it a million times. She'd answer the phone. We'd be at the dinner table. It's Mr. Williams. He says his wife is having chest pains. He wants to know if you can come out to his farm. They live out by. And Dad's like, well, can you wait till after dinner? He's having dinner right now. Could you wait for? He's really worried. I'll tell him I'll be right out there. Gets up, goes out.
Doctor bag by the front
Black-
door.
Yeah, black bag right by the front, bag that he had for years and years. Middle of the night, hear him go out.
Delivers babies, whatever it
Delivers
is.
babies, sews people up, maybe take a do a little minor surgery. He was a general practitioner, so a lot of stitching, a lot of babies. And then people would, sometimes they didn't have money to pay. They'd leave vegetables and stuff, and he was my dad, the thing that was difficult, it's difficult for me to kind of understand about him was he had tremendous compassion and giving, but then he'd come home and he was like this kind of mysterious, kind of angry figure around the house that we all were sort of intimidated by his an intellect and the way he behaved, and that's funny because when my dad died, like about a year ago, he kind of re-embraced Catholicism and Christianity and wanted the priest to come over and get last rites, and because he was kind of afraid, and he decided he believed. I didn't know he believed in an afterlife and heaven, and even in Catholicism, he kind of fell away from the church. But we all went over and we thought he was going to die. We all went home. I was talking, telling him I loved him. I had tears in my eyes. We all had our moment with him. Even though I had a difficult time with him too, love, hate, because he was just arrogant bastard, I thought. So I'm telling him I loved him. Oh, you're a good boy. And he had the oxygen tube on, and I stood up and I turned away after we had a moment and I tripped over his tube and yanked his head and almost pulled him out of the chair. This is after we have this. I do love my father. He does love me. Yank, and he goes. Whoa! I mean, it just pulled him over, and then he just glared at me with that same old look of disdain, and and I went. And my brothers and sisters look at me like, "What did you do now?" The same thing that happened when you're a kid,
It
There
just
again,
all came
screwing
back.
up, and I was like, and funny, like 10 minutes later, my dad's still in his chair with this oxygen tube, and he goes, "Keep him away from me." But he smiled, so he got the joke, and he gave me the joke, so he forgave me, right?
That's good.
God, that was, but
there had to be that moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
but here again, I mean, that's in that story. Everything is the light and the dark, and so now you're in a show. It's a holiday show, but it's very typically a Midwestern dysfunctional holiday show. And it's
Indeed.
called Bob's Holiday Office Party.
Right.
Bob's Holiday Office Party.
Yes.
Been going for 17 years, 18 years?
Yeah, this is our 18th year.
18 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's the show? How did it evolve? And what is it? What happens in the show? Or what? And also give us the information about the show.
Well, it's our 18th year. It's at the Pico Playhouse,
Right.
Which is on Pico and what did you say, Patricia?
Patricia, yeah.
Yeah, right on the corner there.
So for those of you who are in the LA area,
Yeah, and you can get tickets on brownpapertickets.com, and also I think Plays 411, but Brown Paper Tickets, Bob's Holiday Office Party. It's so much fun. I mean, you mentioned this. There's a core of us Midwesterns, not all completely, but mostly Midwestern actors, known each other now for 20 years, that do it every year.
right.
And it's set in the small town in Iowa, because Rob Elcoy co-wrote it with, he's from Iowa, but we actually grew up about 80, 90 miles apart. I was southwest Minnesota, he was northwest Iowa. Anyway, these people in Newberg, Iowa, population 386, meet at Bob's insurance office, Easy Insurance Office, during the holidays to have their annual holiday Christmas party, and they all get drunk and misbehave, basically. There's a thin plot, that's threaded through it, with some guy comes back to town and starts to wreak havoc on the people that abused him, and people almost lose a lot, almost lose everything. But in the end, love prevails. They support Bob, but it's full of all the same kind of light, like, oh, we love each, but just bad behavior, darkness, but happy-heartedness, like these people like that, kind of hapless, the heart prevails. Even and the more heart that we've infused into this play, the more bad behavior we kind of let people get away with.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, it's people accept it more when they get drunk. We are getting drunk on stage. Or the characters are. I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but it's it's so much fun.
It all comes out on the holidays.
Yeah,
It's all scripted.
It's all originally we went on stage and we improvised the original show back at the old theater downtown where the bus depot is down in
Love that
Hollywood.
place, yeah.
We improvised the show, and there's still stuff in this version 18 years later that was that was improvised
From the original.
speeches and stuff.
Oh.
But we finally scripted it, and every year we toy with it and put in new kind of political stuff and new cut stuff, add stuff, and we improvised for 2-3 years maybe. We'd do it once a year, and then we, Rob and I wrote the script and added some characters. And
Is the audience involved in it at all? It's not like a Tony and Tina's wedding. It's not like one of those
but they
things.
feel like they are, because we get these parties that come back year after year because they go, let's go see that crazy, hilarious, wacky, drunken, sloppy, nasty play. It's gotten more and more. It's gotten wilder and wilder.
Yeah. But you have to. Now, I got this stuck in my head because I read one of your plays, probably the first play, Pete's Garage.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in there that I have never forgotten.
What is it?
And I think it's a toaster.
Oh,
What happens?
Plastic
Describe that scene if you can.
Well, having a birthday party for my wife in the garage.
Right.
And this is at the end of the play, and she's been actually beaten now by the husband, and her lover, the Clayton, the mentally diminished, everybody is trying to save Cheryl from Pete,
Yeah.
Nobody knows what to do because they're married. She still loves him too, it's code. They're having a birthday party. They decide, hey, let's bob for apples. They have a little plastic swimming pool. They put water in it, put apples in it. They're all getting drunk. They're partying. Pete gets drunk, starts to get mean again, starts to insult his wife in front of all the friends, and he steps into this pool, and one of his wife's best friend drops a toaster. Is it a toaster? I can't even remember.
It's like a toaster or a toaster oven, yeah.
Yeah, into the water and electrocutes him at the birthday party. And
it has those kind of moments in it, folks. The play.
He's not killed. He's only kind of sort of paralyzed. So his punishment, this gets back to that kind of Catholic Christianity thing, is he is kind of reduced to a child. Now he's in a wheelchair. He can't talk. He has to be helped to the bathroom. He's had, really, it sounds like a stroke, He becomes sort of the surrogate child of Pete and Clayton, now her new lover and her new, and they, at the end, he's like, they're giving him beer through a tube, and he's their child, and they take care of him, and they're happy, and they're in love, and they're, so
all's well that ends well. It's a boy meets girl, boy drops toaster oven and waiting pool while they're bobbing for apples. No, it's great. It's great play, and it really blew me away.
Thank you.
Terrific
Thank you.
writing. Really terrific writing.
I appreciate that so much. It was a great revelation to all of us that the thing, me especially, that it came out through me, and that it worked. People responded to that. They laughed and they got sad too. It was like what it was supposed to be. It's like life, one moment and things are fine, and the next moment they start to turn bad.
Now, when you watch Breaking Bad, do you watch Breaking Bad?
I don't know why. I've only I'm planning on maybe when I'm can't get off the couch anymore because some kind of ailment. I'll just watch the whole season.
I think you'll have to watch it. I mean, I didn't watch it for a long time, and I'm only on season 3. I'm going to watch it when I get home tonight. I savor the episodes, but I'm only in the middle of the end of season 3. I didn't even know really. I
saw it once. I thought it was great, but I had never watched it again. But
it's just brilliant. I mean, it's surprising, electric writing,
and it's funny and tragic, too.
It's funny, but it's dark and it's violent dark. It's not, it's pretty intense.
Tie in kind of a lot of what we're talking about together. Years ago, in one of those bad TV shows, Bryan Cranston came in to audition for
there you go.
A script that I think I had something to do with,
Yeah.
So I was there on the audition, and I remember him being really nervous, and like most actors are, and a nice guy, and he auditioned, and he wasn't particularly nothing. He didn't get the part.
Right.
Show wasn't that good. Maybe that's why. Cut to him talking on Facebook. He gave a little. There's a tape of him talking to actors. He says, "Look, your job is not to try to figure out the casting director, what they're looking for, what they want, how to get people to like you. Your job is to use whatever talent you have as an actor to be good in the audition. That's it, and then leave and find a way to forget about it." And that really resonated with me because I remember seeing him go from there to becoming one of the greatest. He can do comedy and drama. He's tremendous.
He's amazing.
And I had an audition today for a show, and I thought of him, and I was relaxed, and I had one of the better auditions I'd had in a while because I just tried to be real, just tried to be the guy, you know. And I don't know if I'll get it. There was 12 guys auditioning for this one little part. It's like the odds are always, they're just.
But if you've done that and you've shown them what you can do, that's it. It's over. That's your job.
I was happy that I had a good audition.
Yeah,
I was happy because we've all had auditions where I went, oh God, then there goes the tape again. Now you really have something to beat yourself up with. You
had an opportunity.
A middle-aged man who can't even audition. Yeah. What are you even doing going in that room? Why don't you finally get a job somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. This is what you go home to. But that's great. The funny thing about the acting process, I heard about this casting director. It's fascinating to me. And you know what she does? She's a a relaxation specialist. She's a Reiki specialist.
Oh, really?
So she helps people to relax.
Oh.
I had a casting director once who was just the most brilliant casting director. And what she realized is that when people are relaxed, they're actually really good at whatever they're doing. So the key is to if you had techniques that you could help people relax, and you were auditioning them, you could actually get the best out of each person that walked through the door. And the fact that more people aren't doing this, they're actually making their job harder. Because, like you say, we bring it back to kids learning how to calm themselves and breathe and take care and take a breath. Breathing is always available to you.
Right.
It's really something that, it's not something I'm doing now.
Right. Well, I've held my breath since we started talking here.
That's true. And you did a good job. And I was, I held it for about an hour and a quarter.
Well,
I breathe like Frank in Blue Velvet because I hold it, and then when I do it, it looks like...
Oh, I mean, the furniture's moving around in here, for God's
Right.
sakes. You're battering the room.
Right, I'm battering the room with my held-in breath.
But
anyway.
also to accept diversity, along with learning how to breathe as a child. How about accepting diversity from kindergarten on? We're going to learn how to breathe and relax and to accept all diversity.
Right.
So that
People-
we're not constantly battling and judging and hating everything. It's not us.
Yeah, when you're not...
Why isn't that in the education program?
Well, it is only after the fact. It's after somebody gets beaten up or
Why do you have
after
to
somebody
learn-
gets really hurt. Yeah. Bullying.
Right.
Big thing about bullying now.
Yeah.
This is the big campaign and the big slogan. But really, and I saw this. There was a class for kids like 5, 6 years old, and it was about anger management. It was an anger management class for that dealt with techniques for kids at that young age.
Because they were having anger issues?
All kinds of issues. Kinds of issues. But the idea was to deal with communication and feelings.
Right.
And that you could actually talk to kids about that when they were very young. They had things to say about it.
Right.
They actually had things to say about it. Yeah. So, at any rate, now tell us where we can find. Okay, so Bob's Holiday Office Party. Can we read any of your plays?
Actually, I have one that's published online at originalworksonline.com. It's an online play publication.
Originalworksonline.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's called Big Baby. And
Right.
that play was nominated for an LA Ovation Award for playwriting back in 2008, which made me really happy. It was just a complete surprise that people liked it enough to, it didn't win, but the Ovation Award, but it was nominated. 7 plays out of, a couple hundred were nominated, and I was thrilled. And so, it's there, originalworksonline.com. I mean, you can read some of it, you can order it, I also have it on, where else do I have it? I think it's on, I can't remember. But anyway, that's where that is.
You really have to, it's great writing. So, and I know you're involved in a million things. And do you still do stand-up?
No,
do you do stand-up?
I don't. Do you?
Not that much. Not
But
that
you do it?
occasionally. Yeah. Occasionally.
Occasionally I think, hey,
Not
you should
well.
try that.
Not well. Look, when it's a feeling of like pitching in Yankee Stadium. It's like you're sitting. It's like you're lying in a casket, and then you get up and they say, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ed Crasnick." It's like coming from a casket.
Yeah, but you when you interview people, you're good at interviewing everybody. Because I've seen and listened to you interview all different kinds of people. You're really good at it, and you're funny as a comedian. So you should be. You're like the Dick Cavett guy of the right now.
I don't know, but we'll see. But I like talking to people. I like stories. I like hosting. But I find it very interesting. This line, that runs all the way through. And just before we say goodbye here, I have to get back to this. There's a story on This American Life, which is about Mankato State.
Yeah.
Mankato. There's a woman. And about the history, of the Sioux uprising that happened, and when Lincoln ordered the execution of all of these Sioux warriors, of course unjustly, and it was a big thing, and about the spirit of that in that place. But you grew up, you know all about this, and you grew up in Pipestone, And Pipestone is famous historically for.
Well, for Pipestone, for the red rock that that exists there, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the only place in the country. There might be one other place where they can find that red stone. The native people, the Lakota, the Sioux that lived in that immediate area. I'm not sure what tribe. There's a lot of them, but they thought that was the red spirit, the red man in the rock, the stone, and they quarried it and made peace pipes
made peace pipes.
Yeah,
which they then took back to their tribes.
They traveled all over, quarry it, make the stones, and go back. And to this day, natives work the stone, and only natives are allowed to. And it's a national park now. People can come and buy little turtles and pipes and stuff, and walk around the path that has, some hieroglyphics and some carvings, and it closed down when the government was shut down here a couple of weeks ago. They closed that down too. That kind of resonates from your hometown is, But I grew up mostly around white people, but the only people of color around really were the Indians, the few Indians, and there was an Indian school there. That was one of these places that they would take Indian kids and they would, Christianize them, and they would discipline them, and they would, it's an interesting place, Pipestone.
Isn't it near? Am I wrong? Is it near? Is it near Mount Rushmore? Is it anywhere near Mount Rushmore?
No, well, Mount Rushmore, that's in South Dakota, and that's
way far.
It's like, the drive we went on, that's like one of our Rambo tours.
It's like
drive
a 10-hour
for 10
thing.
hours to get out there. And,
yeah. But this was fascinating. If you get a chance, go to This American Life and look at this thing about Mankato, because it's a fascinating story about the history of that area and this uprising and what happened there, and why it has this spirit that affects some of the people that go there. That's what this story was about, about this, what's left over. At any rate, Joe, I can't thank you enough. You came to the ocean.
I had so much fun. It's always good to talk to you.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you. It's a pleasure to see you.
Admire and respect your talent, and I'm glad I could sit here and could just talk and record it. And
I love it.
I'm sure I'll find some shame and some self-condemnation when I hear this, and I'll say, "Why did I ever go down there? For God's sakes!"
And there you go. And then work it all out. That's what this is about.
Work it all out.
It's the recycling. That's Joe Keys, and I'm Ed Crasnick. And you're listening to the Self-Help Comedy Hour right here on Wrecking Ball Radio. And now we're going to have a little bit of music. We always have music on the show, and we always play some music for you. But this is an act. This group of guys is fantastic. They're very funny. They're all actors, and they worked on the show Scrubs together. And they had a band called Ted's Band on the show, and they were famous for singing television theme songs. But they're really funny, and they have their own style. And they came on the show one night, and they did a medley of songs, and it's so fantastic. Here are Phil McNiven and the Blanks.
All our times have come here, but now they're gone. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, and the rain. We can be like they are. Come on, baby. Don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand. Don't fear the reaper. We'll be able to fly. Don't fear the reaper. Baby, I'm your man. La 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 la. You will die. The new boy in the neighborhood lives downstairs, and it's understood he's there just to take good care of me, like he's one of the family. Charles in charge of our days and our nights. Charles in charge of our wrongs and our rights. And I want Charles in charge of me. Charles in charge of our days and our nights. Charles in charge of our wrongs and our rights. And I want Charles in charge of me. Charles in charge.
Bum 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 bum
When criminals in this world appear and break the laws that they should fear and frighten all who see or hear, the cry goes up both far and near for underdog, 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 underdog. With speed of lightning, roar of thunder, fighting all who rob or plunder. Underdog, underdog, underdog. Now unleash the dog of wonder. He's tearing evil's bonds asunder. Underdog, oh what a wonder dog.
and how
Now here's the epilogue. Underdog, underdog.
All right, welcome back to the Self-Help Comedy Hour. This is Ed Crasnick. Earlier you heard Joe Keys, and we just heard The Blanks, a great medley of The Blanks. Go to theblankswebsite.com, the word website spelled out, and look at all their stuff. They have some original recordings, great stuff, The Blanks. Right now we're going to play an interview for you that we did with this guy for, I think it's over 15 years, hosted a show on TBS called Dinner and a Movie, where he played all these characters. And now he has a terrific podcast called The Mental Illness Happy Hour. And he's a pretty intense guy, extremely funny, but the show really talks about mental health in a very honest and open way. And I'm thrilled for him. I really admire his work in the show. And this is a talk that we did. Sit down, relax, take your head out of the oven, and listen to, here's my interview with Paul Gilmartin. Well, now, I have to tell you, I mean, like we were talking about, the community that you've created through the Mental Illness Happy Hour is amazing. It's an amazing community. What have you, like, how has it impacted your life, and how has it changed? Has it changed the way that you view yourself?
I created it because I remembered when I went off my meds what it was like to be severely depressed and to feel no hope and to think that was reality. And so I was like, I should do a podcast where we call out mental illness in all its forms, all of its camouflage. Because the thing about mental illness is, you know, it doesn't present itself as mental illness. It presents itself as a sad reality that you believe.
Right. A sad reality that is, you know, that is distorted and conjured up with elements that are not that are sometimes physiological, that are not based in any truth.
Yeah.
There's no truth to
But it feels so real.
If a feeling doesn't have meaning, it's a feeling, and it goes away. But if it has meaning, if there's thought behind it, if it's judged, if it means anything, it can't move where it wants to go. And so you're stuck. So then you walk around, then I'm unhappy and I'm depressed and I think it means something. And conversely, I think it means something when I feel better. Mm-hmm. That must mean something.
And both things can be things that can bring us closer together to our fellow man. And that's the thing that I had learned from getting sober, was the very pain that made my life so difficult and gave me so many challenges can also be the thing, if I'm willing to open up and be honest about it and share my experience with somebody else, it can be the very thing that I've been looking for my whole life. So it's this bizarre alchemy of the big pile of shit that was dragging you down kind of becomes this beautiful currency that allows you to connect more deeply to other people, but it involves being vulnerable, and it's not always easy, and it's not always simple and clear. Sometimes it's complicated.
And it's very challenging for people who, when I get afraid, I want to be in control.
Yeah.
And you cannot control what's going on. You can't control it. There's no control over it.
But what you can do is you can talk about your fear of having no control with somebody else and say, I'm freaking out. I feel like my life's falling apart. I'm terrified. I don't know how I'm going to make my rent. I think my career's over. Or just calling to say, hey, how are you doing? I know you were kind of freaked out last week about your mortgage. How are you doing this week?
I mean, what you're saying is great. I don't relate to any of it. But I love that you're saying it. I think for people out there who might be experiencing that is great. But I don't personally, but I'm being facetious. But I mean, I said to somebody, I said, my new philosophy is this. It's a trick that I play. People say, how are you? I say, I passed away Tuesday. The beauty of that is that if you actually believe that you passed away, you stop caring, you stop putting meaning to it, and you actually you can accept what's going on because you've already passed away.
Yeah. So. There's a great book by Eckhart Tolle called A New Earth, which had a profound impact on my life in terms of identifying where my ego injects itself and where my fear of living begins to degrade my quality of living. I always like to say nothing degrades the quality of my life like obsessing about the quality of my life. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the ego, and one of the things he says is, I think it was him. It was either him or John Kabat-Zinn, another great author, said, imagine yourself dead. Imagine that you are dead or you're going to die next week. Now go live your life. And it's like, once you have that comfort of, and that perspective of, oh, in the end, it's really all kind of small potatoes because eventually we'll be dead. You'll be dead. And so this thing that I'm so in anguish about right now maybe isn't as big of a deal as I think it is. And sometimes reminding yourself of your own mortality can help kind of shake you up.
Well, yeah, that's so much of stuff is a response to the fear of the unknown. And that's thinking that, we don't know.
And we want to know, but we can't.
The mind has a terrible, it's a terrible thing to waste. It's also a terrible thing to use. Because what happens is that it has a job, and the job is to sort and put things in piles and create problems so it can fix them and figure them out. But it's a small percentage. It's not everything. It's not who you are. If it was who you are, it'd be a great thing. It'd be like, oh, we really can do this.
It's like a lawyer that is able to hire itself that you have to pay for.
And
it's gonna want to bill 18 hours a day. And you have to decide. That's why meditation is so important. You have to decide and say, no, I'm not gonna go to you for this next half hour. I'm gonna try to clear my mind. And you begin to realize that you are not the thinker. There is a you behind you, beneath your thoughts.
Energy, all of these things that people get, they say, wow, that's such a weird feeling. I feel like I've been here before. I feel like I've done this. I can't believe that you said that, because I was just saying it's energetics. It's all energetics. That's the living of life, is the energetic. A teacher I once had, he said, you can crawl around in the dark your whole life. You can just go over and turn on the light, but it's always on. It's the shades that you put on, my thoughts, I'm thinking, it's a beautiful day. I'm sitting here with you. This is where I'm at right now. And the thing I was reading, some of your listeners, the things that they post, about how they talk to themselves and things that they write to themselves. And it's like, it's such a simple thing to do, but it feels like it takes so much effort, because we're so practiced at the automatic of, well, that's never going to work. Well, this is never going to think. Here's where I am today. Here's what I'm doing. And actually communicating with yourself. is a really it's available to you at any time.
If you can talk to yourself half as nice as you talk to your friends, you got life is going to be pretty good. But we are so hard on ourselves. If we said the things to our friends that we say to ourselves about ourselves, nobody would be our friend.
And that's true. And how do you it's a practice over and over again until it becomes so reflexive that you actually think that that's how you are.
And I wonder if that's just a genetic thing, or is it, particular to those of us that were raised in emotionally invalidating environments. I don't know. That's one of the things that makes the podcast fun to do, is it's not all easy to figure out. Each person is different. Everybody's got their own big mixed up bowl of spaghetti where you don't know where the noodle starts and the noodle ends.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I suppose is gratifying about the show, is there's so much to cover. I will never run out of topics. I will never run out of guests. I suppose there's a danger that the show might begin to repeat itself. I'm sure it already has. And I'm sure there are probably some listeners that have gone, this is starting to get repetitive. I'm bailing on this. But ultimately, there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
There's so much to cover.
It never stops, because the human, we're human beings, and and it goes on every day, every moment, everything. Wait, now, I was reading some stuff about. You mentioned Italy in your blog. What are the things that? When are you your happiest? When are you your happiest?
When I'm not questioning where I am at that moment, where I feel that I'm in sync with the universe, and I was born to be in that moment. And when I do the podcast, I experience that. I feel like all the pain and whatever you want to call it that I've been through in my life, I've had to draw upon all of it as a source of strength and experience to do the podcast. So it just reminds me that pain isn't useless. Pain can be the biggest gift we have. Disappointment, loss, those all can be huge gifts if we're willing to connect to other human beings, talk about it, share our experience with other people. And so those are the moments where I just love it. When I'm playing hockey, I'm so in the moment. I'm never thinking about anything other than that second on the ice. I'm so fully present. When I'm woodworking, I'm the same way. I'm problem solving. I'm completely engrossed in trying to fit these two joints together perfectly, and what's the best way to do it. And life to me is stringing together as many moments where I'm not questioning who I am and where I am, as many of those together as I can. And that's kind of my goal in life, is to just pack as many of those in before I die.
And then when that stuff does come up, you have things that you can go to where you can say, hold on, let's stop here for a minute. I can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah, because the processing of pain isn't clean, and it isn't simple, and it never ends. And I don't know about you, but when past pains come up, I tend to ruminate about them, and I tend to go over and over again in my mind, and wondering, am I exaggerating? Am I wrong about this? Am I right about this? And sometimes just saying to like a friend in a support group, when they say, how you doing? Say, I'm kind of fucked up today. I'm thinking this, or I'm feeling this. And then I get to get their input on it. And even if it's input that I might think to myself, I don't think they understand what I'm talking about, I've still spoken what I'm feeling. And there's a healing that I know that comes from speaking out loud what's happening inside of us. It lets some of the steam out.
Yeah, I tried to, I've been trying to, in being a parent, I try to, I try to model certain things. And one of the things that I've been doing is I told my daughter I was going to teach this class. And I was really worried about it because I didn't really know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I was very concerned and really panicky. And I said to her, and this is via, I've talked about the Sedona method a bunch of times, but this is via that. I said, well, why don't you just talk it through out loud, And so I sat there and I said, I got to tell you, I'm really scared about this thing. I'm not sure what I'm doing. And I closed my eyes and I said, it seems a little touchy-feely, but it really feels good. Well, where do I feel? Wait a minute. What do I feel in my body? Well, I feel it, when me is the solar plexus. That's the panic spot for most people. For me, it is. And it's very...
You actually orgasm from your solar plexus.
You say the word orgasm like that happens. That's what I love about your presumption, is that I'm a mammal. And that's where you're wrong. That's where you've jumped the track. That's where you've jumped over the broomstick like Anchisean roots. No, but I mean that's so it's and then it moves. What does it look like in there? What does it travel? Make some room for it. Make some space. You go to the body. Because that's where you have it. That's where you can body doesn't lie.
It doesn't. And at 50 years of age, last year I finally began to start listening to my body. 49 years of age. And it led me to some huge breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times our mind will shut a wall or take something off the table and say that thing that you're feeling you cannot feel that or think that. That is wrong. And I allowed myself to say, what if what I'm feeling when I'm around that person is the truth? What if my body's not lying? What if I'm really not safe around that person? And so, because people's words can very often confuse you. They can throw you off because they can make you think that person is giving you something when in reality that person's actions are completely counter to what their words are. And if you listen to your body doesn't respond to people's words. Your body responds to your history with that person and the actions that they've taken. And I was finally able to go, oh my God, yes, my body has not been lying to me, because I took the words away that this person had been using, and I looked at the actions, and the actions matched exactly what my body was feeling.
And then you made choices based on that?
Then I made choices based on that and said, I need boundaries with this person because I don't feel emotionally safe around them. They're abusive. They're unpredictable. They're volatile.
Yeah, I mean, it's real. All the information is there. It's spelled out every second.
Yeah, but because this person would praise me so often, I thought, how could I not feel... I'm ungrateful for not wanting to be around this person. But I listened to my body. It started with that. I listened to my gut. My skin would almost crawl when I would touch them, and I would my stomach would tighten. I would feel a sense of physical dread when I would see their phone number come up on the phone. And so I started not discounting that.
And that's how you change agencies. Let that be a lesson to everyone. No, but I mean, it really is true. I mean, it's so much simpler than making. They asked David Mamet. They said, "Why do you write so much?" He said, "It's easier than thinking. It's an easier thing to do to write than think. Anything is easier to do than to think." But it's funny. I mean, I was looking that somebody wrote online. They posted that it's Mental Health Awareness Week. And then I looked online to see, actually, when is Mental Health Awareness? Well, it should be every second, but when is it? Well, if you look online, there are 800 Mental Health Awareness Weeks. They're actually compartmentalized into different factions. There's no united way of humanity anymore. Everything is compartmentalized. Everything is narrowcasted. So there's a eating disorder Mental Health Week. there's an anger management mental health week, and they hate each other. These people do not appreciate.
They never go out to eat.
Never go out to eat. It's like, you're the eating yeah, I'm angry all the time.
Well, the angry people always raise their voices in the restaurant.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
You have to be so loud. I mean, can't you just simmer for a few minutes?
Yeah.
No, they don't. But I mean, I thought that was very funny to me because we have no national consciousness about, you look at Twitter, you look at Facebook, what percentage of those posts have anything to do with anything? What percentage of those posts are about how I feel, who I am, where I'm at? I mean, I know that there's only 140 characters, but have one character. And I've leaned in now. Have some character on Twitter. Would you please?
Well, one of the things that I'm trying to do with Twitter is to encourage that sense of community. I'll have people, and myself, I will type, hashtag it too, I need a hug, or hashtag fear off, and we'll list the fears that we're going through that day, or do something positive, we'll hashtag love off, and we'll list things that we love. And I love it when social media can be used to bring people together and to help alleviate their loneliness and their feeling that it all is lost. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah, you can see one thing can make a big change. You can hear a piece of music. It can be anything. When I've been really depressed in my life, I stopped giving myself privileges. There's no privileges now. There's no music. Can't have music because music will make you feel something. When you're depressed, you don't want to feel. Food, whatever it is. And so just the institution of these living things, a walk, changes. So it can change your perspective. It can change everything.
It can. People can become very socially and sexually anorexic. It can be about other than food, where you are denying yourself healthy experiences and healthy emotions. And a lot of times that's people that have been sexually abused. That's a common thing that they do, is they either become very promiscuous or they shut down sexually and socially, and their lives become very small because there's a predictability to that smallness that they find safety in. But it's like living in a bunker. Yeah, it's predictable. There aren't a lot of surprises, but there's also almost no joy, and there's no feeling of connection.
Yeah. I mean, just, a little bit of, it doesn't take much. But any connection at all, that's what I was thinking. I wrote about, TV. So many of us have experienced TV, and there was certain comforting TV and I realized that there was a theme behind the TV and the movies that I would watch. Because the movies that I watch when I'm down they're not always good movies. They're just familiar movies, and they're comfortable movies.
Like what? What are some of them?
For some unknown reason, not for an unknown reason, family movies that aren't very good, but once around with Holly Hunter.
That's a sweet movie.
It's very sweet. It's not a great movie, but it's a movie about a family.
Yeah.
Okay? So now you've got a family. Now,
and they've got this sweet little routine in it that's kind of nice.
Right.
That's like, there's a history.
Right. I mean, this is a bad movie, but The Family Stone I was watching over the holidays.
I haven't seen that.
It's not very good, but again, it's this family thing where people accept each other beyond.
And I think it's what you're talking about before we started rolling, which is a feeling. That's what. And Stanley Kubrick, I just went to see the.
Oh, you saw the exhibit?
The exhibit, and he said movies aren't about making us think; they're about making us feel.
You have an experience.
You have an experience. It makes you feel. Yeah. And so that makes total sense to me, that those bring a feeling about you.
Yeah, I mean, and and the TV shows, the classic TV, the Andy Griffith Show. It's a small town where people actually have there's no guile.
Now I'm the opposite. I find comfort from dark things, dark reality-based things. Not necessarily people arguing with each other, but like things about serial killers, things about tragedies, not recent things because those are still too sad to me, but the ideal one is about a serial killer from the 70s.
Wow.
That is very comforting to me because it reminds me other people have mental struggles, and it reminds me mine isn't that big of a deal.
Right.
So it's kind of selfish in that I need that curve of humanity to go, okay, Hitler's on the bottom, Gandhi's at the top, I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to now. There could be a channel, there could be a program executive who's listening, and he could say, Hitler Hour next coming up, Hitler, Nazi Germany, and then following that, let's go to Gandhi's house. Let's see what he's up to do. And then we have Heil Honey, I'm Home. And then we have I do like.
And I'm not the only one that feels that way. I started tweeting about it, and tons of people. There were other people that find a sick comfort in watching the movie Seven.
Now, I've never seen that, but
it's dark.
It's supposed to be.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
But darkness is comfortable to people who are in the dark, not people that experience darkness acutely, but people that experience darkness chronically. A lot of us are comforted by the darkness because it's like something that is relatable. Whereas the rest of the time we're going, what's it like to enjoy Christmas? What's it like to? I don't know what it's like to feel joy.
Well, is that true?
Yeah, to feel joy around the holidays and be like, oh, I'm so excited that Christmas is coming. I've never felt that.
So what do you do? What do you do now?
I kind of vicariously follow my wife's lead because she enjoys it. And so I try to be supportive, but I take a lot of naps and I try not to beat myself up. I just try to go, okay, And I don't know if it's because Christmas, wasn't necessarily fun at my house once you took the presents away, because it was maybe more kind of forced dealing with that whatever family dynamic. But I don't know why it is, but that's why doing the podcast is fun, because I think people enjoy talking about things that don't have ready answers or that people might disagree on.
If I was your depression, if I'm you, because we talked about what you say to other people, you would never say to yourself. What would you say? I'm your depression. What would you say to me?
Please stop stalking me. And I'm 100% serious. I feel stalked by my depression. Every time I think I've escaped it, it comes back. It's relentless. It is dogged.
Well, let me just speak as now. Now I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay, and you tell me if I'm way off base or whatever. Why do you assume I'm here to hurt you?
Because it feels like you do.
I hurt you.
It feels like you do because you take away my joy. You take away my ability to experience simple pleasures. You make it difficult for me to feel. You make me numb. You make me flat. And you make me have to do a lot of things to feel. You make me have to go to therapy. You make me have to go to this transcranial magnetic stimulation I'm trying. You've made me try 15 different meds. Some of them have worked. Some have worked for long stretches. Some have worked for a couple of years, but then they stop. And it's frustrating.
I got to tell you, from my perspective, and again, I'm speaking as your depression now, I feel very unwanted, and you try to keep me out. And so I'm in pain because you try to keep
Does
me
my
out.
depression have a consciousness?
I don't know. But I'm saying to you, as your depression, I'm saying I don't feel welcome.
And that's why I keep coming around. I keep knocking on the door because the door has been slammed in my face so many times. I'm just saying.
So you're suggesting that I make friends with my depression?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I probably should.
I don't know. What would that look like?
Well, in some ways I have. I've, to a certain degree, I've surrendered to the fact that it's something I will probably battle for the rest of my life, or have to accommodate. And I do try to accommodate it instead of beating myself up for having it. I take a lot of naps. Some days I sleep until 1 in the afternoon and then I'm napping at 5. And I've stopped calling myself lazy for doing that. And I've tried to have some compassion for myself. But it's hard when your wife comes home. She got up at 6 in the morning. She's worked for 10 hours that day and you haven't lifted a finger. And she doesn't make me feel bad about it, but I can tell that sometimes it wears on her. And there are things that I'd like to accomplish that just feel like Mount Everest when my depression has its claws in me. And, it gets very tiring. Stalking is the best verb that I can find to describe its presence. Not necessarily what it feels like, but how dealing with it feels.
It's a tremendous effort and a big chore, and it's very draining.
It is.
This new thing that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that you say stimulates the feeling part of your brain.
Yeah.
What is that? What is it? How does
It's
it work?
a magnet that they put, they send energy pulses via magnets to the part of your brain where you experience feelings and emotions. Mm-hmm. The theory being that because you shut down as a kid, or just genetically that part of your brain is kind of atrophied or was never healthy and thriving to begin with. Those energy pulses will force your body to send more blood to that area and create more neurons and help stimulate growth in that area so that you will be able to feel more. Because one of the ways that my depression presents itself is flatness, gray. Everything is gray. And you find a few things that can lift you out of it, but a lot of times they tend to be addictive and things that then wind up degrading your life even more. For years, pornography. I would look at pornography because it was exciting. It would jumpstart me out of the flatness, or getting loaded, drinking and doing drugs, and then that became unmanageable. So it's kind of a never-ending series of ninjas coming at you, and you're never really sure exactly what the best way is to deal with it.
Does the things that you mentioned before that bring you joy, like the woodworking and the other things that you do, does that stop?
The woodworking is very much dependent on how my mood is. If my depression is in full swing, I have no desire. I look at woodworking like having to clean out an attic. That's how much pleasure it would bring me. When my depression is at bay and I'm feeling good and I'm feeling joy, it's exciting. I feel energized being in there. I love it. Hockey has always been something that even when my depression is bad, I always enjoy doing. And I'm so grateful for that. But the way in which I play hockey can sometimes be affected by my depression. Mm-hmm. If my depression is bad, I'm looking to get certain things out of that game to jumpstart me out of the depression. Playing well, maybe my team winning, and then I start trying to control it. Uh-huh. And then I find myself yelling at a teammate or yelling at a ref or getting 3 penalties in a row because I'm trying to run guys over. And all the while, intellectually knowing, man, you're being really controlling here. You're being kind of a dick. But when that thirst in your soul to feel something positive is like a starving or a person dying of thirst in the desert, and winning or playing well looks like a glass of water. It's really hard.
And what about performing and doing stand-up and acting and stuff like that? Now you're depressed and you're about to go on stage. How do you deal with what happens?
Well, I for years, especially when my depression was really bad, I would have to do the TV show, and that would be 10 hours of improvising on camera. And for one period of time with a co-host, I was fighting tooth and nail with. So I learned very early on to shut down my feelings and deliver. I had to do it with my mom growing up. She was a fucking handful. And to be vulnerable around her would have been to be hurt dozens of times a day. So I found a way to escape through fantasy, through making friends, by making sure everybody in the room is happy or thinking that I have control over that.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned very early on to hide what I'm feeling, plaster the face on, and be who I think people need me to be. So it's no surprise that I was able to make a living in television for 16 years while I was suicidal between takes, catatonic. I mean, the camera would stop rolling and I would have to stare into space because to even utter another sentence that I didn't have to was like lifting weights. And people would say, "Are you okay?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I'm just tired." But the truth was I wanted to die, but I was afraid to kill myself. And I knew that once I got back home, I'd be able to drink, and then at least I could feel something positive.
So that cycle was in place for a while.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of amazing, and I think people would be very surprised that some of the people that we see every day on television who are extremely successful and whose job it is to be hosts, daytime hosts.
There's something very Stepford Wivey about a lot of hosts, and I tried not to be that person because I always hated that. I could smell it from a mile away. And so I tried to have as much honesty about who I am and what I'm feeling as was tolerable. I always tried to ride that line. Sometimes it involved being negative or mean or cynical. And I guess that's what gave the show some of its flavor, but they only saw a tip of the iceberg of what the real rage and sadness I was feeling inside.
This is Dinner and Movie.
Yeah.
And these characters, you're hosting, but you're also doing characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is pretty surprising that and this is not, we don't see a lot of this on TV. We don't see a lot of it in the mainstream. Even today, when you're a host, you're supposed to be in control. You're supposed to make other people feel good. You are not supposed to be, there's a code book, and the code book says the host is never depressed. The host doesn't have moods. The host doesn't have feelings. The host is there to make the other guests look good and to make the audience feel good. Now, I love Jack Parr. And the reason why I love Jack Parr is because Jack Parr, of all the people, and I'm sure he had his own craziness, but of all the people I've seen on television, he was one of the guys who actually looked how he felt and behaved the way he felt on television while he was hosting a late night talk show, the most popular one in the country. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. To be a human being and be a host is a revolutionary act. If you can sneak it through, you will change the world. I'm telling you. And that's why I think what you're doing with the podcast is great, because you show different sides, and then people see that you can actually be, it makes you bigger. It makes you more
Three-dimensional.
open. It makes you three-dimensional. It makes you a human being. You can be a human being and host a show.
There was an episode about a month or two ago where I started to do the intros and the outros. Because I'll usually record the interview, weeks, sometimes months in advance, and then when I put the episode up that day, I record the intros and the outros, and I'll read surveys or emails or whatever. Sometimes let people know what's going on in my life. And I was feeling huge dread in my stomach because I was depressed, and I didn't want my intro to be a buzzkill. But then I was like, I started this show so I could document what depression looks like, and it's all its, forms. And so I got honest with the listener, and I said, I'm so depressed, I'm struggling to put sentences together. And so I did and I said, and I'm not going to edit this. I'm going to do this so you can hear how my brain is operating, how I'm beating myself up, how it's shutting down, how I'm having difficulty finding words. And people appreciated that. And it felt really good because I now have a place where I don't have to hide anything. And I know there are people that are going to stop listening because it's too dark or because it's sometimes too gloomy. But I know that the people that do appreciate that honesty, it's going to mean something to them that wouldn't be there if I tried to not bum people out when I'm feeling depressed. If I tried to be something other than what I am.
Yeah, they'll get it they'll feel it.
They will.
And then it won't be, and it won't move.
Yeah.
And it won't move. And it won't move them in the same way. What is mental health?
A friend of mine, I think, summed it up perfectly. He said, to experience joy without mania and sadness without depression.
All of this interview that we've had today will be the music of Silence of the Lambs. We'll be under it. Because on this show, we never do nothing nice and easy. We always do it nice and rough.
Okay, that's our show for this week. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all my guests. I want to thank the great Joe Keys for coming and visiting. You can read his plays at originalworksonline.com. The play is called Big Baby. And I also want to thank the Blanks for their amazing music. They are so funny. TheBlanksWebsite.com is where you can find them. And I want to thank Paul Gilmartin, the Mental Illness Happy Hour. Find that online. It is absolutely brilliant, or on iTunes. The Self-Help Comedy Hour is heard each and every week on WreckingBallRadio.net. I want to thank Jason Tanner for letting me be here. I want to thank Justin Wise on sound for letting me put together the show, helping me. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I'm Ed Crasnick. Have a great week.